so slow and laggy, right, Blue? It won't work. I can't play anything on it. It's so laggy. Come on, just work. Work!
What's the matter?
This thing won't work and it's so frustrating. Just take this and throw it away, and I never want to see this stupid thing ever again.
I wonder what's wrong with this thing. Ah, it's Windows. I'm not surprised.
I want him in the games until he dies playing. Acknowledge.
I hunger.
Wow, that was a little bit crazy, but I'm back. Thank you for joining me today on Glen's Retro Show. Now, what I'm going to talk about today, I have a lot of classic consoles which are great. I enjoy the real thing, as you can see. I like having the real hardware, but emulation is good too. It definitely has its place. There was a time where I preferred emulation over the hardware, mostly because of cost. It doesn't really cost you much to run it, but you do have to have a halfway decent machine to do so. Now, a lot of people probably have some older computers lying around. I know I sure do. You can see my son's frustration with an old netbook that he had, which is a little Atom processor, about 1.6 gigahertz, and only 1 gigabyte of RAM. And Microsoft used to sell Windows XP and 7 trying to run in this small form factor, and it really didn't work very well. It was kind of slow and clunky. So what could you do with them? Well, a lot of people got rid of them, just tossed them to landfills. But what if you can actually run a bunch of retro games on there? Now, a lot of the emulation does require halfway decent horsepower, especially on a Windows platform. There's a lot of overhead in Windows. But when you go to something like the Raspberry Pis, they got a pretty powerful chipset in there, but they can run quite a bit of games in there, something that an equivalent Windows machine may not have been able to do. But what if you could run RetroPie and Emulation Station on an X86 platform? Well, you can. This is that very same little netbook that was driving my son crazy, and that little Sinistar virus was in there.
Run, coward.
Got rid of him too. It's now running Linux. It's running Ubuntu, version 16 or 17. I think I have 17 on this one right now. And there is a way to get Emulation Station running on here, and it's really not difficult at all. So this machine would have been worthless for pretty much anything else, but for running these retro games, it really works pretty well. So if you want to stay tuned to this episode, you can find out how you can take some of your old desktops, laptops, whatever you have lying around that you won't use anymore, and turn them into a nice little gaming console. Let's give it a try.
So here we have little Acer Aspire 1 with a Intel Atom running at 1.66 gigahertz with only 512K of cache. It's got a 10-inch LED screen. It's got built-in Wi-Fi, batteries, so it's not too bad for what we're going to use it for. But you can see for running Windows, it kind of struggles with it. So we're not going to keep Windows on here anymore. Let's go and convert this to the Linux operating system, Ubuntu. So there's a couple ways you can get it installed depending on your computer system. Here I'm going to run it off of a CD-ROM because I already had a CD-ROM available. Just make sure you can boot from your media. Ubuntu can also be installed from a flash drive if you have that. And I could have went that route, but I had a CD available already and I didn't have a flash card available, so I'm going to be booting it from a CD-ROM. Now I have truncated quite a bit of the video, so you don't have to sit through the entire install process, but the important parts will be here. The installation speed will of course vary depending upon your processor speed, hard disk speed, and available RAM. I will of course have links down below to where you can download your own copy of Ubuntu. The process is fairly quick, and now we're starting to get to the graphical user interface on the Ubuntu installation CD to where we can start making some selections of how we're going to have it install. So the first option we are presented with is, do we want to try or install? We're going to select install, so we wipe out everything on the current hard drive. Now during the install process, if you're connected to the internet in some fashion, whether by Ethernet or by Wi-Fi, you want to download updates during the install process. It'll save you some time. And also we're going to completely erase the disk. Anything that was currently on the hard drive will be completely wiped out and replaced with a new operating system. And it's going to ask, are we sure? And we're going to say yes, wipe out everything on the hard drive. The next question is going to be asked where we're located, and I'm a New Yorker, so I'm selecting New York. I'm going to hit continue. The next option is the keyboard layout, and again I'm going to pick US English for both. Now for some reason the OK and cancel in the lower right is cut off. I'm not sure why that happened, but I just used the tab button to select OK, and is now moving on to the next option. For my name, I'm going to put in, of course, Glen's Retro Show. The computer name, I'm going to just call it Arcade, and the username is going to be just Glen. Now for the password, I am going to put in just password because we're eventually not going to use that at all. I'm going to also check mark login automatically, so after the first login I don't have to type that password in anymore. Eventually we're going to completely wipe out and not use that at all. Now we just have to wait a little bit while it does its copying process, and I'm going to speed this up 64 times just to kind of get past this process. Okay, so the installation process has finished, and now we simply need to restart to load the Ubuntu operating system on the computer. So I'm going to press restart, and we'll just wait a few minutes while the computer does a reset. Okay, so our operating system is now loaded on the computer, and basically it's a standard graphic user interface. I mean, if you can use Windows or Mac OS, it may take a little more time to understand the Linux way of doing things, but it's not too difficult. The first thing we need to do is press Ctrl-Alt-T to bring up this command line interface, because that's where we're going to be doing most of our work. And make sure you are connected to the internet via an Ethernet cable or Wi-Fi, because we are going to need to have the internet open here with Firefox. And we're going to do a quick little search here in the Google bar. We want to Google search RetroPie X86. When we do that, we're going to pick the first option here, which will take us over to a tutorial on how we're going to install everything. Now we already have the Ubuntu installed on the computer, so we can skip past the first part here and scroll a little bit further on down to the RetroPie setup. So the first thing we want to do is update and upgrade the existing apt packages. So we're going to simply copy the first step here and paste it into our command line interface here and press enter. And we'll simply sit back and let it do its upgrade. Now we do have to enter our password we entered, in my case password, when you first installed the operating system. Now this is one of the quicker parts, so we'll just let this go on to completion before we begin our next step. Now we do get a requester here asking if we can use another 684 kilobyte of disk space for the next operation, and of course we're going to say yes. Okay, once the first part is complete, we're back at our command prompt. So we can now move on to the second stage. And I apologize for some of those graphic glitches there. My capture device wasn't doing a fantastic job the entire time. So we're going to go back to our web browser and go to install the needed packages for the RetroPie setup script. So we'll simply highlight the next line. And we're going to copy it. And then we're going to paste it into the command line window. Press enter. And we'll let this part complete as well. Okay, we're back to our command prompt. So we're going to go back to our web browser. And now we're going to download the latest RetroPie setup script. So we're going to highlight it, copy it, and again paste it in our command line window. Once there, again we're going to press enter and let the package install. Okay, we're back at our command prompt. So we're going to go back to the Firefox browser and go down to the next option, which is enter the folder with the setup script. So basically it's going to do a change directory to the RetroPie setup folder. So we're going to copy this, paste this into the command line window, press enter, and we're already there. So that's nice and quick. So back to the web browser, and now we're going to actually execute the script. So we're going to copy the entire command here and paste that into the command line and press enter. Okay, the majority of the installation is done, and now we're ready to actually do the basic install. And this will install the gaming packages into the Emulation Station. So we're going to make sure the basic install is selected at the top, and then we're going to press the OK button to begin the install process. It's going to ask, are you sure? And we're going to say yes, and let this run. Now this will take a while, so just let this run for as long as it takes till it completes. Okay, when the install process is done, you'll come back to this screen. Now you could go to manage packages and add other emulators into this, or go down to perform a reboot. Right now I'm going to say don't do either of those. We're going to make a couple more changes to the Ubuntu so we don't have to ask for, say, a password every time we come in and out, and also make some other changes to the operating system to make it better set for gaming. Okay, now we want to enter the control panel and go to the brightness and lock screen. We're going to turn off the inactive for screen to never, turn off the lock, and also turn off require my password when waking from suspend. This will make sure when you're playing the screen will never go blank. It will never bring up the lock screen, and you don't have to enter a password if the machine somehow does go into some type of suspend mode. Next, you go into the File Explorer here, and you will see the folder called RetroPie. Now what you can do, and I recommend, you copy your ROMs onto a USB flash drive, plug it in, and you can then copy them into the ROMs folder here. And you can see these are all the current emulators installed in the RetroPie Emulation Station. Of course you can add more. And when you put the USB flash drive in, it'll show up under other locations. And it's just simply copying them over into the appropriate folders. Okay, once that's all done, we're going back to the command line to enter the following command, sudo/retropie_setup.sh. We're going into this file because we don't want to have to manually type Emulation Station in the command line every time you reboot your computer. You want it to automatically go in. So when you type that command in and press enter, you're going to have to put in your password that you set up again, because we haven't done that yet to get rid of that. So we're going to go back in here and then go under the configuration tools, and right here we want to select the auto start. So we're going to go down to the auto start button, press enter on that, and change it from disabled to enabled. And now when you restart or turn your computer on, the Emulation Station will load automatically. You don't have to manually go to the command line and type Emulation Station. We don't want to do that. So when that's all done, let's save it and go back. Okay, once we go back in here, this time we are going to go down to perform a reboot, because we do need to reboot this so it now accepts all of our changes we have made. So you're going to select reboot and say yes. Now if we've done everything correctly, instead of going to the desktop, we'll see Emulation Station, and there it is. So it's automatically starting. And since it's a new install, we do need to set up some type of buttons. I'm going to use the keyboard just for right now. So I'm going to press one of the keys on my keyboard just till it detects it. And it detects the keyboard. And I'm going to set up my up key, down key, left, right, number 1, number 5. I'm going to use the control. Now you can't use Alt here. For some reason Alt brings up another option. So I'm going to press space for the B button. And for right now I'm just going to just skip past everything else. When you press Alt, it's almost acting like a Windows key where it kind of brings you back to the desktop. So try and avoid the Alt key if you can. If I find a way to get around that, I'll post an update video to this. So just skip past all the rest just to get them all programmed. And you can see here is RetroPie running on an X86 platform. Now the next thing we want to set up is the sound. Now hopefully the Ubuntu was able to detect your sound chip and there's no problem with getting sound, but the volume's usually set pretty low. So what we're going to do is simply go under the sound settings and go to the system volume, and I crank it all the way up to like 90%. Just to make sure we have some good sound coming out of our system. And we'll go back. Okay, once we close this all up, I'm just going to show you from start to finish how long this little netbook, which couldn't even load Windows, how long it takes to load Ubuntu and go right into the Emulation Station. So this will all be in real time. As you can see, it booted right into the Emulation Station. We have Atari 7800, Atari Lynx, Sega Master System, Nintendo NES, and RetroPie. So I didn't install too much just yet, but seeing it's running RetroPie, any emulator that will run within it, you can download and install. But keep in mind, this is a 32-bit version of Ubuntu and RetroPie. So some of the emulators may not run super well in it, like say an N64 emulator. I think it really wants the 64-bit operating system. But this little netbook is really not capable of doing all that. I do have the Vectrex installed in here as well. And let's see how some of these games play. Well, my friends, that's it. You've just completed your install of RetroPie on your regular X86 computer system. And let's see how my son feels about that little netbook that he couldn't stand before. Let's see what he thinks about it now.
Hey Cole, why don't you try it now?
Oh, is this another one of your tricks?
Well, why don't you see and find out for yourself?
I'll be the judge of that. Hey, Dad, this actually works pretty well. It's not laggy at all. Thanks, Dad, this works really well. Thank you for putting a game on here for me.
So I hope you found this video helpful, and if so, please like, share, and subscribe to the video. Maybe you or one of your friends can get some use out of an old computer that was collecting dust, and now you can play some great games again. So everyone, thanks for watching again. Remember, game on, and watch out for that Sinistar virus. It's still getting around the internet these days.
I hunger.
Sit, Blue Blue, sit. Good dog.